We talk tonight about Japan dealing with its immigration problem, Donald Trump complaining about immigrant crime, about our immigration problem, and the ABC already yelling racist. Well, in Britain, immigration is also a massive political issue. The crime, the handouts, the rape gangs, the illegal immigrants flooding in by boat. But Britain's BBC is even more shameless than our ABC, can you believe it, in trying to rig the debate. It's Question Time panel show. Had a special segment last week on immigration and got a couple of people who'd come to Britain illegally by boat to come put their opinions and attack the chairman of Nigel Farage's anti-immigration reform party.
You came over from Afghanistan on a small boat in the last 4 or 5 years, I think.
Yes, I come from Afghanistan.
So the man in the white shirt, now I know you came over on a small boat. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
What's your response to what you're hearing?
Damage our security cooperation. You think this is...
I'll happily answer that question. My parents came here legally.
Joining me is writer, broadcaster and commentator Esther Krakue. Esther, great to see you. Look, the BBC stacked that show with 2 illegal boat people, paid for their fares to come. Did the BBC also pay anti-immigration protesters to come put their point of view?
Well, it would seem so. I mean, this is the stuff that you just can't make up. It's like Britain taking its immigration policy advice from a Mexican street vendor, only made worse by the fact that these 2 individuals entered the country by breaking our laws. Now, they've since been granted asylum, which I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. You can just look at the stats on data from individuals from Afghanistan and Iran in the UK and see where they line up with the general population. But I'll leave that for your viewers to do that independent research on their own. But it's just a complete affront to what the BBC should be about. They don't even get a good balance when it comes to what British people actually think. Their interns and their journalists are just a bunch of blue-haired, left-wing individuals from university, which is why you keep seeing scandal after scandal in the BBC, because they have no true diversity, which is the diversity of thought. And then to add insult to injury, they are hosting a debate about immigration, which is a seriously contentious issue in Britain, was one of the leading drivers for Brexit. And they think the British public want to hear anything from people who broke into the country illegally and have since been granted asylum, individuals that are inevitably going to probably benefit from Britain's welfare state, not even just now, but certainly down the line, and certainly when they were in the process of getting their asylum case heard, because the British government offers all sorts of benefits, even to asylum seekers, like healthcare, dental care, education, housing, things that even British citizens, individuals that have paid into the system, are struggling to access. So it's no wonder that the BBC has fallen in such disrepute, not just nationally, but globally, because these are the kinds of ridiculous stunts that they pull and they expect to be taken seriously. On what grounds did any producer think it was a good idea to have 2 individuals, one of whom had failed asylum cases or claims in 5 different countries in Europe? So he admitted it himself before he decided to come to Britain. So Britain was a country of last resort. And because, of course, our British state wanted to prove him right by showing how incompetent it was, it granted him asylum, even though he'd been rejected by 5 other countries, which would probably indicate that he probably shouldn't be there in the first place. So yeah, it's no wonder that, people have such a huge problem with the BBC, because they're just ridiculous and completely out of touch.
Well, I just realised we probably have matched you on that, because I do recall now a guy had been charged with terrorism offences, a Muslim chap, who was invited onto a show to berate our opposition, our government then at the time, for being too tough on terrorists. Here's something to encourage our opposition leader, Susan Lee, by the way. She was considered absolutely done and dusted, as a leader, as was your Kemi Badenoch, your Conservative Party leader. I say collectively you. But Badenoch last week gave a speech in reply to the budget handed down by Chancellor Rachel Reeves, another woman Reeves had been complaining about all this criticism, complaining like our former Prime Minister Julia Gillard that her critics were misogynist. Badenoch, let her have it. Have a look.
All we've had is wallowing in self-pity and whining about misogyny and mansplaining. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, let me explain to the Chancellor, woman to woman. People out there aren't complaining because she's female, they're complaining because she is utterly incompetent. Real equality equality means being held to the same standard as everyone else. It means being judged on results.
What do you make of that message? And why is it that only a woman would have dared give it to another woman?
Because we have an establishment, media establishment in the UK, particularly a left-wing media establishment, that would have lost its mind at the idea of true equality, which means being held to the same standard as everyone else. And I think Kemi makes a fantastic point. One of the most celebrated prime ministers in British history is Margaret Thatcher, who happened to be a woman. And she wasn't celebrated because she was a woman. She was celebrated because she fundamentally changed Britain in many ways for the better, although she did have her flaws like everyone else. And that's what people need to bear in mind. The fact that Rachel Reeves is kind of leaning on mansplaining and misogyny to cover up her utter failures when people are being completely just done by the government, high bills, ridiculous taxes, can't afford a home, can't afford energy, is utterly insulting. It's one of the things that people will remember about this government, not just the fact that they're complete failures, but the fact that they can't take their failures on the chin like everyone else is supposed to.